The Adventures of Irvingman.
Mr. Man owns a little art shop. He mostly sells inexpensive trinkets.
Afternoon. Can I help you?
Possibly. We'll look around.
Hey, what's the big idea?
The man pays him for that whole lot of little figurines, then he and his friend proceed to smash them all. They search through the fragments a little, then casually leave. As amazing coincidence would have it, Lois Lane arrives right as they drive out of frame. He tells her what happened, gives her the item she came for, and she's off with her news antennas starting to twitch.
Oh, by the way, do you have any China egg cups?
China egg cups? No, I'm afraid not. Try Edwards in Front Street. He'd have them.
Hey, China egg cups are news too, you know.
Oh, no.
Wasn't no bull in the china shop, lady.
Don't tell me, I'll tell you. Two men walked into the shop, a tall one and a short one. The short one smashed him and the tall one paid for the statues.
How did you know?
I read minds. Thanks.
Now her news antennas are tingling. One shop might be some harmless nuts. Two in a row is a question screaming to be answered. She spends the rest of the afternoon on the phone.
Mr. Kent, I have just stumbled onto the wackiest story this side of a nut house. Now get this. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, two men walked into Benelli's art craft shop.
And smashed a lot of cheap plaster statuettes.
Well, how do you know?
Oh, I get around.
He knows because one of the shops called the Planet and wanted them to send a photographer and give him some free publicity. Obviously, these guys are looking for something.
I have a hunch there's a story behind this statue-breaking binge. Now let's buy some of them and see what's inside. Here, you cover 5 of the places and I'll cover 6.
Oh, Lois.
Where's your spirit of adventure?
But this is silly.
Now look, I'll be home after I check my places. If you hear of anything exciting, let me know.
But Lois's efforts haven't gone unnoticed.
That's the dame, boss.
Those are the two guys who have been doing this. They decide to follow her. They'll get somebody else to cover the rest of the shops. Lois goes straight home and starts breaking statues.
Eureka!
That's a city in California. Is that where the key's from? She calls Clark and tells him about it. They compare notes and learn that the other guys have found a crazy menagerie of items in the statues. What neither of them knows is Mutt and Jeff are listening at Lois's door and she's talking really loud. Clark tells her to hide the key she found because they're bound to be looking for it. Talk about timing. Clark calls the last shop on his list. The two guys are there now, but the shop owner won't call the police as long as they're paying for what they break. The two guys find 3 pennies in the wreckage and say goodbye.
My name is Kent. I'm a newspaper reporter. I'd like some questions answered.
Out of the way, chap.
Call Inspector Henderson to police headquarters.
Goodness gracious.
I hope I don't have to mention how he got there so fast.
But what am I going to hold them on?
I don't care. Disturbing the peace, willful destruction, anything.
How about assault? They threw 3 punches at him. The fact that they missed is irrelevant.
There's one thing you newspaper boys have got to learn. You can't take the law into your own hands.
Now look, Inspector.
This time, Kent, you pulled a real boner.
Hey, this is a family show. There's a good example of how quickly language changes. I hope nobody minds if I leave it at that. He has nothing to hold him on, so he has to let them go. Clark is frustrated, so he'll go see how Lois is doing.
Great Scott! Lois!
Do you really think she'd still be in there? Start looking for clues and call the inspector again.
Sit down, Miss Lane. Pleased?
I hope he doesn't think she's scared or intimidated. That already puts her one up on him. She's not going to take his orders no matter how politely he gives them. Requests only, and those will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Clark has discovered that this guy is a known con man named Paul Martin, so the suave, genteel demeanor is an act. It's a safe bet that Lois can see that, too.
You stuck your pretty inquisitive nose into a matter that concerned you not one whit.
I know. Curiosity killed the cat.
We may have to kill more than a cat before we're through.
Don't threaten me.
Too bad there weren't two statues there.
Dorn, leave her alone.
Look, let's get one thing straight. That key belongs to me. I paid for the statue it was in, and I own it. And you and your friend here can threaten me until the cows come home, but it won't do you one solitary bit of good.
He has his friend take her into the next room. After enough rummaging in her purse, he finds the key. He calls the local airport and says, have the plane standing by. I'm not sure why he's taking her. He already has what he wanted from her. Just leave her tied up in the apartment. Somebody will find her eventually. Clark and Henderson are trying to find anything. Clark knows the list of items has to be a code of some kind, but he hasn't cracked it yet. An officer comes in with good news. They grabbed one of Martin's men.
You're a two-time loser. Armed robbery in 39, felonious assault in 44. You know what happens if we clip you now.
Well, I didn't do nothing.
You broke into Miss Lane's apartment.
That wasn't me.
Who was it?
Well, I don't know.
Henderson will get it out of him.
Well, he's got a place up in the mountains.
Where?
Rock Hollow.
Told you.
Is he there now?
I don't know. Told the guy who runs his plane that...
Plane?
Yeah.
Where's he keep it?
Ramsey Airport.
Hey, Kent, wait a minute. Can't wait, no time.
He's headed down to Silsby to change clothes in that alley again. Not really, we just see him flying next. Martin has his goon take Lois onto the plane with instructions to keep her at that cabin until further notice. The plane is ready to take off. Oh no, it isn't. That's as much of the rescue as we'll see. In the next scene, Clark is explaining the weird collection of items to us. Excuse me, to Lois and Inspector Henderson.
That's an acorn. Plus pin. Now, we subtract car.
I see what he's doing. My question is, how did he figure out the sequence? How does he know which ones to add and subtract? And how does he know he's right?
Now, what have we got left?
PMO 97.
PMO 97. Let's kick that around a little bit. PMO 97 doesn't seem to mean anything.
Especially when his answer doesn't make any sense.
What about PO 97? Let's leave the M out for a moment.
Well, it could be Post Office 97, either a box or a substation.
Well, good girl.
You get a cookie and a pat on the head.
Now we'll add the M.
It is a box. Post Office Box 97, main branch.
That's right. There's something in Post Office Box 97 at the main branch that Martin has gone to a lot of trouble to get.
Well, what are we sitting here for? He's got the key.
Because the post office doesn't open till 7 o'clock in the morning.
And I'll be there in person to help Mr. Martin open that box.
He couldn't just tell them that was the answer. He had to show his work. Reminds me of the teachers who taught me to hate math. See, I was one of those kids who could just look at the problem and my brain would go ding, ding, and there's the answer. So I'd write down the answer. But they always said, show your work. To this day, I haven't figured out how to represent ding, ding on paper.
You're under arrest, Martin.
What's in that package that cost Lois Lane a complete rebuilding of her apartment?
Is this what we've been beating our brains out for?
No, Inspector. This.
The inspector couldn't figure that out. What has everybody in town been doing with these little ceramic animal figurines since this whole thing started?
It's a ruby.
The Rensselaer Ruby.
That's right, the largest ruby in the world, stolen 3 years ago from the London Museum.
What a story.
Thanks to Kent here.
And to Superman.
Yeah, Lois didn't have a thing to do with it. All she did was literally find the key to the whole thing so you big smart men could put it together.
Well, like I always say, two heads are better than one.
Even with the peril to Lois, which has to happen, it's in her contract, this is a fun episode. Trying to figure out why these guys are going around smashing these little things, but only ones that come from a certain manufacturer, the goofy stuff they're finding and all the rest. It was a good puzzle. My only little problem is how smug, almost cocky Clark is when someone talks about Superman. Lois Lane is a good enough reporter that it shouldn't be long before she puts it together. But rather than go public with it, she's also smart enough to hold it over his head. I see many, many repetitions of "lunch is on you" in his future. Even with the peril to Lois, which has to happen, it's in her contract, this is a fun episode. Trying to figure out why these guys are going around smashing these little things, but only ones that come from a certain manufacturer. Why did I say that? Manufacturer. No women manufacturers around here. We gotta have manufacturers.